Hey folks, Wally DM here, and today we're going to take a look at one-shot or plot hook ideas that you could use in your game. Now these are ideas that were presented by you, the subscriber, and the good folks from the Discord. If you'd like to see more one-shot or plot hook idea videos in the future, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below with what subject you'd like to see next. So let's turn the page and take a look at our first entry. Our first idea comes to us from Rob Christians, who writes, Denir, the god of books, grants a vision of the future. A Thayan Death Knight with a handful of undead wants to steal a book from a secret library and kill all the librarians. The party needs to plan ahead and stop that from happening and find out why they need that book. The book has information about a former Thayan wizard who went rogue. Now most of you should notice that Rob's idea does include the Forgotten Realms with the Thayan Death Knights, Denir, the god of writing, and things along those lines. So I think we could keep that theme going. And that wizard that turned rogue, that could be a powerful necromancer lich by the name of Zas Tam. And in fact, I believe that the Dungeons & Dragons movie actually did something with the Red Wizards, and Zas Tam, spoiler alert, does appear in the movie. So let's get back to our one-shot idea. The characters, if they have a cleric in the party, perhaps as God reaches out to them in a vision, or maybe they're hired by a cleric that had the vision, and they're able to share it with everyone so they can experience it for themselves. But regardless, they need to go set up shop at the secret library, and maybe they replace all the librarians, so the party is going to pose as librarians. But they don't know exactly when this event's going to happen, so we could do some role-playing and puzzle ideas and things along those lines before the Thayan Death Knight and the undead show up. So I think that would pad the adventure a little bit. And then of course, finally, what is the book and why do they need it? I'm thinking that this powerful lich, whether it be Zas Tam or whatever it is that you decide on, needs an item that was sealed away in that book. And the librarians that are in the secret library are the ones that locked it away. So in order to get this item out of that book, then the Death Knight is going to need those librarians to pull that out of there. But once they do that, they are no longer going to be needed. So they can be done away with. But of course, now we have our party that's posing as the librarians, so it should be a lot of fun to see what happens. And we could throw in a little bit of a twist, perhaps if we do go the route with them being hired by a cleric in order to pose as librarians, maybe that cleric joins them and is also working for the Red Wizards or Zas Tam. So when they do accomplish everything, the book is gone, and now they have to track down the cleric and the book. Our second idea comes from If And or But, who writes, Finding a Hag's Book of Grudges. The players read their names scribbled in it. Having never met the hag, they attempt to return the book to solve the mystery, or perhaps it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So this is a really cool idea where the characters find a book that is written by a hag. It's a book of grudges, maybe something along the lines like the Big Bang Theory where Sheldon has an enemies list. This is going to be a grudge list by this hag, but they never remember encountering this hag. So what exactly happened here? So I like the idea of this being a little bit of a future telling event. And if the characters do decide to return this book to this hag and find out why their names are in there, I think along the way, they're going to get the reasons why their names are in there. Perhaps we put up a small dungeon crawl to be able to get to her residence, and along the way they spill some of her favorite potions or brews. Maybe something that couldn't be replaced is broken. Or if you're going to have the hag's location being in a swamp, then perhaps they killed her beloved pet crocodiles on their way to the hag's house. That's totally up to you. But regardless, by the time the characters reach the hag, she's going to be pissed off, and she's going to definitely let them know exactly why their names are in her book of grudges. Now on the flip side of that, let's say that our characters decide not to approach the hag or to return the book. So what other ways could they make the hag angry? I think one of the most enticing ways to do that is to set up a bakery that is in the village or town in which they live, and a lot of townsfolk are getting poisoned from it, or maybe they're getting polymorphed into strange or bizarre creatures. The characters are able to figure out what it is, and it's the fact that there is an evil cookbook, and the baker unknowingly is including these ingredients that shouldn't go into it. They're able to solve the problem, they're able to destroy the cookbook, but that cookbook was a prized possession of the hag, and by destroying her little market or her chain of bakeries with these recipes and these cookbooks and things like that that are wreaking havoc on the town, the hag is going to develop a grudge, and she's not going to be too happy. Our third idea comes to us from Immortal Origins, who writes, a black book with strange and eerie symbols is found in an old library. The book is filled with scratch and claw marks and depicts strange bestial creatures. Reading the book out loud summons cat versions of multiple D&D creatures. The name of the book, Nekonomikon. Now, I do have to admit, when I originally read this, I had to reach out to Immortal Origins to find out exactly what he meant by a Nekonomikon, because when I googled this, I was coming up with Calls of Cat Cthulhu, which is a strange little adventure that you could run in the style of Call of Cthulhu, but it's a Call of Cat Cthulhu, which I thought was really interesting and bizarre and weird and sounds like a lot of fun. But what we decided on was a Nekonomikon was a book of cat knowledge. So I'm going to treat this like a monster manual, and when you read the monsters out loud or read a portion of that book, they're going to come out but with some cat-like features. One of the images that Immortal Origins sent me was a big fur ball, a big cat fur ball with a single cat eye in the middle, and it was the cat beholder or something along those lines. And a few other things that I could think that could terrify our players would be a mind flayer like cat, going back to that Call of Cat Cthulhu idea where we have the cat illithid, and maybe the cat illithid has little cat brains, little intellect devourer cat brains, and if your mind is absorbed by these little intellect devourers, then you think like a cat. But of course you can take this idea of mixing the monster manual with a feline or a cat to a bunch of different levels. You could have invisible cat stalkers, you can have cat monsters that turn your weapons into catnip, you could have cat undead, whether it be cat zombies, or you could have a cat lich. That would be absolutely terrifying, I think. And then finally, the best of them all could be a cat dragon. A dragon that looks like a cat that's swooping down in on you. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Let me know in the comment section below, if you were to mix a cat with a monster in the monster manual, what would it be? Our next idea comes to us from Colin, who writes, a librarian shopkeeper comes into work every day and finds that the books are all rearranged. They reset them back to what they should be, but it keeps happening. Is something trying to send a message? Should some books not be kept together? I think this idea could go many different ways. The first thing that I think of is definitely a puzzle situation. Perhaps the books need to be put in a certain order, whether that be by color, by author, by date, by title, by subject, and the spirit or whoever it is that's moving these books around is trying to give the characters a clue. Now, other than a puzzle, you could do something like a mystery. Perhaps there is a ghost that is moving them around at night, and that is because the ghost is reading the books in the library and keeps separating the books that they've read from the books that they haven't read, and they keep getting upset that the books that they've read and haven't read keep getting mixed back together. Alternatively, this ghost could be an author, and perhaps a few of their works were stolen by a different author. So even though all the books are lined up by author, there's always like 2 or 3 that are misplaced, and that is because improper credit was due on the book. I also like the fact that Colin provoked the idea of maybe some of these books shouldn't be put together. So to continue with this ghost idea, perhaps this ghost is keeping things from getting all mixed up. What I mean by that is maybe there is a fictional book about pirates, and if it's put next to a historical book about pirates, maybe the two of them together, that fictional character, maybe it's some type of pirate or undead or something like that, has the chance of actually going into the history book. And if that happens, it could start to change history. So in order to prevent this, we have a ghost or some type of deity or someone that is rearranging the books to make sure that nothing like that happens. And then finally, we could just say that there is a character that sneaks into the library at night, changes everything around, and then thinks that it's a lot better organization. And that character's name is going to be Dewey Decimal. Our fifth and final idea was submitted by Inquisitor Thorn, who writes, the party is tasked with retrieving a large omniscient tome that records its own history, including everything the party does does and says in its proximity in real time. So I like the idea of perhaps this book has fallen into the wrong hands. So in part 1 of our one-shot, the characters are going to need to go and steal this book from an evil person or an evil business or something along those lines. But once they get the book and they open up, they can see that while this book is not where it needs to be, that all of knowledge is starting to slip through the cracks and things are being lost to time. So they need to replace or put this book back to where it came from so they can flip through the pages and they can see exactly that, where this book originated from. Now, along the way, if the characters are looking through this book, they're going to see their events being written in the book in real time, but it's going to be from the book's point of view. So I can really see the book commentating on what's going on. So perhaps the book is in the character's possession and they're going through a dungeon and they trigger a trap, and I can see the book writing day 5. Here we are with this adventuring party, a bunch of numbskulls. They triggered a trap. Anybody could have seen that. That one was obvious. I don't think I'm ever going to make it home. I just think that would be a lot of fun to give this book a little bit of personality and let the characters read it in real time. But I also think that they could start developing a little bit of madness as they're reading it. Perhaps there's a wisdom saving throw and they become obsessed with it. And that way they start making more mistakes or something like that. Be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what you would do with a book that records its own history in real time. So if you enjoyed this type of video and you would like to see more that feature ideas by you, the subscriber, then be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment below as to what you'd like to see next. Also, a big shout out and thank you to everyone that submitted ideas for the book one-shots. I really enjoyed reading through all of them. I appreciate the participation. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.